Hey Miranda, how you doing? All right, thank you so much. I'm really learning a lot here. You've heard me say this before, Miranda, and for anyone else who's watching this video, is it's just so important to give a really good detailed description of your experience with the iteration of the design you're working on. And I would say that for this class, and that's my preference of an instructor. And I think it's great for all classes because it really lets us know a lot about what you're learning. So thank you here. And this is certainly no exception, Miranda. This is great. So let's go through this. Trouble on colors in the back, through the JPEG change colors. Yeah, anytime you have it, it really has to do with compression. So there's no way you can compare colors specifically with two different formats. Just so you know, it's really a difficult thing to try to ascertain color harmony if you're looking at a JPEG one version, let's say the front cover, and then a PDF of the back cover. So I think that makes sense, right? But I changed the original blue because I found that it didn't match. Couldn't make it work with the design. I changed the orange. That small piece in her clothing works for me. I darkened the purple slightly. I mentioned, well, I'll talk about that. But I wasn't too sure about what I should have done instead of the pink color. Okay, we'll talk about that. I chose to do a red line text. That makes sense. I think it reads so much better. Yeah, here's a timeline. That makes sense too. So thank you for clarifying that. All right, let's go ahead and jump right over to the composition, which I have somewhere. There it is right there. And I'm going to reduce the size of this, of course, so that, you know what, as a matter of fact, forget that. I'm going to download this and we'll take a look at the PDF in Illustrator. I'm sorry, in Acrobat. So this just take 1 second. There we go. Let's open that guy up. And there we go. All right, this is looking really amazing. I think it's fantastic. I think the other version had, let's see what we got here. Yeah, wow, what a difference. What a difference. Yep. This is pretty heavy. So let's just go ahead and take a look at that. All right. And again, I've got the PDF up, so let's go ahead and, okay, a couple of things I think. Right now, I think your type is pretty large. I don't have the design file, but I think this is pretty large type. So consider decreasing the point size and increasing your attention to negative space, okay? So for example, we could theoretically give this something like a title, like something like Malala, okay? And you can present that, just think about it. I'm just saying an example. A really interesting and neat technique in graphic design is to use the eyes as a leading line, okay? So let's say we have a little title up here, Malala. Okay, then we come down here, we just follow her eyes right over here, and that's where we start our text. It's a great technique. I use it all the time. Every chance I get to create a leading line or a phantom line, I do it because it works. So think about that. I think a really neat thing to do would be to use a drop cap here. And I think something cool that you could do is just take that purple for the drop cap itself. As far as your color choices go, this is great because you sampled it right out of her clothing. I love the way the timeline looks. I think it looks fantastic. One thing I would recommend is to maybe use a bold in the actual heading, so the year itself. And I'll take a closer look at that in a second. Yeah. Okay. Let's take a look at the type. So I'm not sure if this is old style figures, but you definitely wanted to go ahead and look at employing old style figures and small caps were applicable. If old style figures aren't, and this is probably a review, but if old style figures aren't available, just go ahead and select the type and reduce by a point or two. And that'll really bring those numerals, the figures, down into more alignment with the X height values of the typeface. So think about that. No widows, no orphans, excellent. Rags look darn good. For your edification, I'd like you to take a look at that, adjusting your rags. It's a new video I placed in the announcements area, and you'll definitely be using some of those techniques. So think about that. Again, I just think the typeface might be a little bit large. So try that. Try recomposing. Let's take a look at the timeline. I'm just taking a close look at it. Again, old style figures. Nice job setting these little spaces between your paragraphs. I think that, two ways to demarcate new paragraphs. One's an indent, one's a space. And I prefer space. That's what I always use. I love to preserve that beautiful left margin. So I prefer using, if you do indent, try not to go more than 4. Depending, it really indents depend on the size of the width of the type box. So, a type box like this, I probably wouldn't go any more than 4 characters, maybe 5 characters deep at the most. Okay, good regs. Everything's looking great here. Let's zoom in a little bit so we can take a closer look at the timeline. One thing that's bugging me about the timeline, this looks great, by the way. One thing that's bugging me about the timeline is the way that these are offset. So we can see that in the entries on top, I would, you've got enough room here. You've got plenty of room. I would say pick the middle of the type blocks. It looks like all of your type selections are the same width, which is fantastic. So what we're going to do is we're going to select the middle of it, and we're just going to bring the middle into alignment with the character right here. Okay, and you've got plenty of room, so it really is going to make sense, because right now we're getting some weird optical illusions where we can't figure out where this belongs here or here. I know I'm exaggerating somewhat, but think about it. Oh, again, your old style numerals. Pretty consistent. All right, looking fantastic. Really looking great. The only thing that's bugging me about this composition is this color right here, this background color right here. It just, boy, it doesn't seem like it's harmonious. Now, one thing that you could do is you could theoretically, you could take one of the colors, you could sample a color out of her outfit here, and you could use it for your background. But I would really, really transparent, screen it back considerably. You do not want a solid color here, because that's going to affect the typography. Experiment with that background color. Another interesting technique that you might try is, as I think that the image is pretty large, you could get away with reducing the size of the image. And then to add some visual interest, if you do elect to use a drop cap and use one of these colors, maybe that purple for your drop cap, depending on the hue you choose for the background color, theoretically what you could do is this, and it's a really neat technique, but it won't work because this image is too big. Reduce the size of the image, duplicate the square, the exact square, and set it in the same color purple as the drop cap, okay? So it'll be hidden. It'll be right behind this image. It'll be the same size, so you won't be able to see it. But then what you're going to do is make sure that that color box in the back is selected, nudge it down a little bit, and to the right, it'll create like this three-dimensional effect, and it gives some dimension, some depth, and some overall volume to the entire composition. So think about that. That's a really neat technique that is far superior to trying to place a frame around an image. Think about that. Okay, so those are my recommendations. If you have any questions at all, and again, please go ahead and take a look at that video, that how to set your regs video, because you'll learn a lot about that. So, all right, any questions, or if you need any clarification, you know the drill, right? I'm right here, and I'll be glad to supply you with any further comments or instruction or advice needed. All right, great job. Thank you, Miranda.